Hey, how's it
Right.
going?
Hello, hello. What's going on this morning?
Ugh,
Middle of the day for you already.
geez. Doesn't feel like it. It feels like, time flies so quickly sometimes. You're just like, holy shit. I wish I,
Man, you stay up late, man. You're like running on the no sleep program.
yeah, I don't mean to, but there's just like so much shit to do, and I still haven't gotten to like the shit I need to get done.
I hear you, man. I hear you. It's crazy. I thought I was staying up late, and then I saw you still pinging around. I'm like, dang.
Well, KuCoin's a nice one.
Nice. What, doing good today?
No, I think that just seems like a good, conceptually, that just makes so much sense, you know?
Yeah, I mean, dude, as these exchanges do more and more money, I mean, 50% goes back to shareholders, I think, from an investment standpoint, um, you know, all the new people are expecting to get rich overnight, so they don't really get it. But like, if you could buy a dividend paying stock that makes 10%, that is like the best dividend paying stock in the world.
So shit.
So if you can have a 10% dividend paying stock and it's going up in value like cryptocurrencies, that's even better. Now people think 10% stupid, but like that's where like all this POS, like proof of work, is going to proof of stake. And so, from Ethereum to XLM to Steam and like KuCoin, I mean, they're all going to be paying between I mean, even Neo right now, 5 to 10% dividends.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds tiny, but it's like it's
Dude,
not.
5% dividends are awesome. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you know what I mean. People, we're just all so jaded now. 5% sounds so meager. But so anyway, when I can find a good dividend paying stock like that I think is gonna go up in value, yeah, it seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I guess that makes. I mean, it seems. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but it's like Binance Coin also made so much sense, along with this and everything. I like though. I like how KuCoin is going more decentralized or aiming to go that route, while Binance is just kind of a money grab. I feel.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually what I'm going to be releasing this month is a decentralized pack. So if you saw my video or the bullet points I had there, it was like I think the two biggest things, the two biggest sectors this year will be privacy coins and decentralized exchanges. Those are going to be the two biggest sectors because we're going to see just so much regulation coming into the space. And really, like without I mean, I have always said I thought Steam and BitShares were my favorite projects, and really, BitShares is I believe the most important, or at least the model, because without a decentralized exchange, cryptocurrency is worthless. The whole point of having decentralized money or currency, but still having to go to a centralized bank to exchange it, defeats the whole purpose. So
I can
we
see
have.
that. I mean, if you're talking about the currency aspect, yes. I see though blockchain can work in a centralized world. And even with currency, a blockchain backed currency can work in a centralized world, like the Venezuelan petro or whatever, right?
Well, I mean, the technology, yes. I'm talking about the ideology of a decentralized currency.
Oh yeah, no, yeah,
You're talking about a blockchain technology currency versus I'm talking about a decentralized currency.
no, you're right. I guess yeah, that goes where it goes to. Are we propping up the evil empire by investing in Ripple? So
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying that there's a difference between decentralized money and just blockchain powered money. So the thing with the decentralized money is that it's supposed to be the whole thing that's revolutionary is it's censorship resistance. Nobody can take it. Nobody can seize it. Nobody can stop me from sending it. Nope. Like it's up to me 100%. And so then anytime I have to put money onto a centralized exchange, that defeats the purpose. Now that government could seize my money, the government could order them to freeze my money. They could decide. I mean, dude, there's stories. You could go, there's hundreds of stories of people that visited Cuba, and you know Cuba's open now.
Mm-hmm.
People visited Cuba, logged into their Coinbase account while they were in Cuba, and Coinbase froze their accounts and they can't get their money out of Coinbase. And they have the process they have to go through to get their money out of Coinbase is they have to deal with the one of the U.S. government branches, I forget, like the U.S. Homeland Security or Treasury Department or whatever, to get authorization, to get paperwork, to submit to Coinbase. Can you imagine how much of a nightmare that is?
Yeah. Hey, let's actually have this conversation on live because that would be kind of interesting.
All right, sorry.
No worries. So I also thought, why don't we start it with kind of a summation of your 2018 predictions? Is that cool?
For sure.
So we'll start with that. Do you want me to share this on your Block United stuff or keep it off there?
Yeah, go ahead and share it on there.
Okay. Well, we are going to go live in. Okay, we are going live in 3, 2, 1. We are live, Mark. Hey, how's it going? You're tuning in from where? Sunny Hawaii right now?
Well, it's not sunny right now. It's 6 a.m., but yeah, it's been pretty sunny. It's nice out here.
Nice. You know, it's 0 degrees. Well, actually, it warmed up. We hit 10 degrees today in Chicago, so we're kind of enjoying ourselves and everything. You know, so I don't know how that compares against you and your weather.
Yeah, well, you know, it's wintertime over here as well, so it's definitely not as warm and sunny as it normally is, but, you know, I think we're still in the 70-ish range, maybe into 80 range, so definitely a long way from where you're at in Chicago.
No, definitely. Well, with that, let's kind of catch up. It hasn't been that long since we last talked. I think it was last week, but in this cryptocurrency world, it feels like the world has changed. You know,
Yeah, things happen fast for sure.
100 billion in value has added, and then another 50 billion has disappeared, and then another 40 billion has reappeared. You know.
Yeah, so, you know, we ended 2017 just, I mean, just unbelievable. Stocks had like their best year ever. The stock market, for those that don't know, the stock market is like an all-time high, and actually it's so high that it has people worried. It's kind of dangerous right now to be that high. So it had like its best year ever, and I mean it had like a 35% gain over 12 months, you know. So from January 1 to December 31st of 2017 did about 35%, whereas Bitcoin itself did 1,300%, and it wasn't even close to the best performer. As a matter of fact, it's less than half of what the market did. So we always look at individual stocks or coins against the market, and the market would be everything. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, everything added up. And so stocks did 35%, Bitcoin did 1,300%, and the market did over 3,000%.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was pretty good. And it went from about 17 billion January 1 to just over 500 billion December 31. So, I mean, that was massive. You know, for those that have been tuning in every week, we got a little rocky, a little shaky there at the end of the year. You know, with Christmas coming up and end of year probably tax situations, and just I think overall just a market correction being needed. The market was pretty volatile. As a matter of fact, I think December 21st it had dropped about like 40%, and then it kind of got choppy trying to come back. But I had a good feeling that after the first of the year, things would calm down. You know, a lot of those holiday issues, end of year issues, tax issues, all those would kind of go away, and we'd be ready for a rebound. And boy, have we had a rebound.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but literally my positions they're down a little bit, but I guess this is where FOMO, right? You know, once we gain something, we immediately assume it's our money. But then when their gains disappear, we think, oh my gosh, the world's ending. But if I
Yeah.
look back like between New Year's, I mean, heck, literally from Sunday to now, I mean, I'm double my position. My money is basically doubled from where that was at before. And I don't know
Yeah.
how it's
So
been for you, but I mean,
so we want to, as I said, right, we compare individual stocks or coins against the market, to see how the average is, and then obviously we want to look at our portfolio against the average as well. And so, Bitcoin did about 1,300. The market did 3,000. This is for 2017, and our portfolio did over 7,000. So we did what is it, like 150 times better than the market did. Now, so just speaking in terms of market cap, not going into every single coin that we have in the portfolio, but just as far as market cap, in the first week of 2018, the market went up 46% in 1 week. It went from whatever 500 billion to 830 billion in the first 7 days of 2018. So that's massive. But then the market crashed day before yesterday. It tumbled all the way back down from 830 to 702.
yeah, I think I was down about 28% or 25% or something like that in the morning.
Yeah.
So
But it actually wasn't what it seems. The market didn't actually crash like that. It's actually like all hocus pocus. So let me explain why that is. So the entire industry gets their prices from coinmarketcap.com, CMC. That's the Bible. That's the listing of every single cryptocurrency and their prices out there. Now, a lot of you guys that are watching this know that when we did the profit taking on Ripple, there was a big discrepancy on price from the Korean exchanges to the US. So it looked like Ripple was whatever 325, but the reality was when you went to go sell it, if you were on Bittrex, for example, might have only been 280 or 290. So even though the price showed 320, we could only sell it for 260 or whatever that amount was, right? So a lot of you guys saw that. So what's been happening is Korea. So there's a lot of markets actually, and I think we'll get into this a little bit later. But in right now today in Venezuela, their inflation is over 500%, and because their inflation is so high, people are trying to get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as fast as they possibly can. And because they're trying to get in so fast, supply and demand dictates the price goes up. They're paying a 35% premium than what we pay. In Zimbabwe, it's 1,200% inflation, and they're paying an 85% premium to get into cryptocurrencies. And so back to the original part of the story, which is Korea. Again, they're so hot. They're so trying to get into this that the supply and demand has pushed the price up, and they're paying a premium. And so what happens is when you look at CoinMarketCap, the price they show is an average of all the different exchanges. When you click on the markets tab, it shows you all the markets where that coin is being sold, and it shows you the prices. The Korean prices were so much higher than everything else that it brought the averages way up, even though that wasn't really the average. It was skewing the numbers, if that makes sense.
Oh, interesting.
So 2 days ago, what CoinMarketCap decided to do was to remove the Korean prices from the averages to bring them back down to a realistic number.
Wow.
And what that did is by removing the Korean prices is it made the prices appear to tumble way down.
Well, let's take a look at this. I'm going to actually share my screen real quick, and let's take a look at Ripple, because yeah, it looks like if we dive in on Ripple, if we look at the chart, and let's look at the 7-day chart, it literally looks like, yeah, Ripple just tanked completely on last night. So what you're saying is this, can you see my screen okay, Mark?
Yep.
So this, now if I go to markets, okay, so it still has the difference between BitHum and Coin One and the rest of the world.
They're just not being used in the average.
Oh, interesting. So now it begs, now I kind of want to see if I have any Korean friends. I mean, so now what is it about Korea? I mean, if you look at the volume here, I mean, if I add these three up, this represents that's 56% of all the Ripple volume is going in Korea at about $1 more per coin. So $1 more per coin, that's like a 40%, 30 to 40% premium. I
Which is
mean,
exactly what I just said. Yeah, so Korea has been making up over 60% of the market share for the last couple of months. As a matter of fact, my themes for 2017 on the recap that I did, I talked about the rise of the Korean exchanges. So the Korean exchange has been making about 60% of the global demand. And as I said, the same with Zimbabwe, same with Venezuela. Today, the demand is higher than the supply, which pushes the price up. So same in Venezuela, they're paying about a 35-40% premium there as well. The difference is that they don't have the volume, so it's not really spiking the numbers as much. But the Korea, it was skewing the numbers, and then people weren't happy about that. Oh, I see it's 325. I go to sell it, it's 280. And so CoinMarketCap decided to fix that.
interesting. Now,
Now, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, could it have been done a better way? I don't know. A lot of people are kind of mad about how that went down. A lot of people think that maybe they should have at least put out better notices and press releases, posted something on the website, whatever. But my point is that we saw prices tumble down by 20%, but the reality is they didn't really tumble down like we think they did.
Well, now, I guess there's a few things that kind of jump to, that come to mind when I think about this. First is, I need to find myself a Korean friend that has a BitHum exchange and move my money there.
All
And
you gotta do is get yourself a VPN.
yeah, do that. The second thing though is it confounds me. I mean, we're talking about how Bitcoin and this stuff is, we all feel like we're in a bubble. These valuations seem completely unrealistic. But how can it be that South Korea, which, I mean, it's not a bad country, but I mean, in the grand scheme of GDP and people and stuff like that, there really just aren't that many South Koreans out there. I mean, I look at a map and South Korea is like a little dot compared to the US or China or Russia or the EU. I mean,
Yeah, no,
I
you're right.
mean,
That's what I said. It's a small population, so I don't have the answer for you as to why it makes up 60% of the volume, other than it's super hot there. People are super into it. The thing is, this is a much bigger discussion than we're probably going to get into at this point. But the thing that everybody needs to keep in mind, especially if you're watching from the United States or Europe or any developed nation for that matter, is that this is a global movement, all right? So typically when we're investing into the New York Stock Exchange, for example, right? So these are US-based companies that we're investing into. We're buying their stocks. It's the New York Stock Exchange. Well, there's a stock exchange in Japan. There's a stock exchange in China. There's a stock exchange in Europe. So it's all fractionalized. So we're used to just looking at investing in just our country. The problem is that now, like I said, these are global. And so a lot of the problems that these things are fixing are global problems. And if you're in a developed nation, you don't understand those problems. You don't get it. So for example, the dollar is the world's reserve currency. The dollar runs the world. It rules the world. Everything around the world is priced in US dollars. So as an American, we think in terms of dollars and we don't see a problem. Oh, the government would never make my money worthless. The government would never freeze my money. The government would never seize my money. The government would never, like, all these things, because we're Americans. Well, in other countries, it happens every day. It happens every day, and they're always afraid of their money becoming worthless overnight or losing it. And so, like I said, in Venezuela, I mean, just look up the news, man. Go onto Google and type in Zimbabwe or Venezuela and see what's going on. In Zimbabwe, the inflation rate is 1,200%. That means I go to buy a loaf of bread for $5 today, and tomorrow it's over $10, and the next day it's over $20 for the same loaf of bread I paid $5 for a couple of days ago. So what are those people doing? They're trying to get rid of those Zimbabwe dollars as fast as they possibly can, and they're going into Bitcoin. The same is going on in Venezuela. In Venezuela, it's 500%. Now, Venezuela used to be one of the best countries in the world. 15 years ago, it was one of the best countries in the world. It has some of the most a country's value really comes by the natural resources that they have, and Venezuela has massive,
Yeah,
massive
there's
natural
lots of oil there. I know that.
lots of oil. They decided to socialize. They decided that the government should own everything. And if anybody looks at history, they'll see that that doesn't work. Now, Bernie Sanders came out and said he wanted to be socialist and everybody wanted to vote for him, but I'm not here to talk politics, but just do your own research, Google that, and see how well that's worked. And you can look at Venezuela, who decided to go to socialism 15 years ago. They have 500% inflation going on. The people can't get out of their money fast enough and into Bitcoin. And so the same as in Korea. Anybody see what's going on with Korea? North Korea wants to go to war. North Korea is going to blow up South Korea. The whole market is unstable. And again, people want to get out of those dollars and into digital currencies. So that's the reason why it's so popular. That's the reason why the markets are so hot there.
Wow.
And we don't get it, we don't get it, but we have to, in order to really understand this global movement that we're getting involved in. We have to understand global situations.
So that's interesting. I guess, you're right. I mean, if you think about it, like I remember from the telephone days, some of these countries, they kind of skipped over the process of landline telephones. Like, people always thought, hey, you've got Africa or you've got the Middle East, and when are they going to catch up with the US and Europe with landline telephones? And they just said, screw it, we're going to put towers in. And they went straight to mobile devices, and wireless penetration is bigger than, yeah, I mean that's just how it is in some of these developing countries. So, I mean, based on what you're saying, I mean, hypothetically, if their markets are so basically jacked up, for lack of a better term, I mean, could they just go straight to you? Well, I mean, Venezuela, they're issuing their own cryptocurrency, right? I mean, that's
yeah, they're trying to issue their own cryptocurrency, but they don't get it. And to be honest, I mean, if any of you guys are paying attention, none of the banking or government people get this. They don't get it. They don't understand. So, the talking heads on TV, the media, the government, they all want to tell you that, we need to regulate to protect the people. People are only jumping into this because it's speculative. People only get into this because they think they can make a lot of money, but it's super dangerous. We need to protect them. That's what they think. I don't know if they really think that, but that's what they're trying to tell you to think. The truth is that people understand the charade, the game that's going on. People understand that every country is using money to control people, as well as they're continually devaluing the money. That means every day your money is worth less and less and less. And so that's why a good amount of people are moving into this. So by Venezuela ruining their money and forcing people into Bitcoin, by them producing their own digital currency, what is that going to solve? They're just going to ruin their own digital currency. So, anybody that's been watching us for long enough knows that we have, two problems, or two questions that we look for. A massive problem that has unlimited demand, and we were also looking for a coin that has is a deflationary coin. It's got a fixed cap. So as the demand rises, the volume stays down, and it makes the coin more worthwhile, worth more. Now, what goes on in the U.S. dollar or in Venezuela is they just keep printing more money. They just keep printing more, and that makes it worth less, which is why in Venezuela it's 500% inflation. So if they keep the same policies with their new digital currency coin, what does that solve for them?
So a commenter watching our video just sent a note showing how they have a $10 trillion note, or no, a $10 trillion Zimbabwean bill. That's crazy.
It's crazy, but it happens all the time. That's cool that they brought that up. I remember when it happened in Mexico with the pesos, and what happened is they actually had to create a nuevo peso, a new peso, and they had to chop a couple zeros off because it just got too out of hand. So they didn't really fix the problem, but they went from a peso to a nuevo peso, and they just cut a couple zeros off.
I guess that happened in Greece too, right? I mean, that was the whole EU issue, and oh gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
and then you have a couple years ago in Cyprus where they went bankrupt and they literally seized anyone that had money in the bank. The government took a piece of it. Depending on how much you had, they took they took up to 50% of people's money that were in the bank. Sorry, your money's in the bank. It's ours now. This was in Europe. I mean, this is not like communist like North Korea. This was in Europe. So like people in the US a lot of times are oblivious to these things that are going on, but this is but people globally are living this, and this is what's really pushing the utility. And so people want to argue, oh, Bitcoin has no utility. Really? Well, to people in Cyprus, it has a heck of a lot of utility. People in Zimbabwe and Venezuela, it's got a heck of a lot of utility.
No, you're right.
And so that's where I've said over and over and over, the revolutionary thing about Bitcoin, the utility, the value of Bitcoin comes in two things. People say it has no value. It's got a lot of value. And I'm going to tell you two things so you know more than anybody else talking about this right now. It's got a lot of value. One, the network effect. Okay, that means the more people that use it, the more it's worth. If I'm the only guy in the world with a fax machine, it's not worth very much. If there's two fax machines, it's worth a little bit more. When everybody has a fax machine, it's worth more. That's the network effect. When everybody uses Bitcoin, it's worth something. But the second thing is it's censorship resistant. That means, like I said, no one can seize it, freeze it, manipulate it, steal it. I have the right to keep it, send it, whatever I want to do, I own it. It's censorship resistant. No government can tamper with that. And that's valuable. It's very, very valuable if you live in Zimbabwe or Venezuela or Cyprus or one of these other countries that are doing this. Now, again, in the US, you don't see that. But the fact is that it's happening right to you right now. So in 1970, President Nixon separated the dollar off of the gold system. And I'm going to go back, actually, I'm going to go way back. I'm going to go back to the Roman Empire. So again, we study history to predict the future. So if you look at civilizations, we can understand where we are today based in this natural progression of civilization. So the Roman Empire, well, the Romans decided they wanted to build an empire. They wanted to take over the world. Well, to fight wars constantly, it's very expensive, as a lot of you guys have been seeing, right? So it's very expensive. And so they wanted to take over the world. It was very expensive. And so they didn't have enough money. So at the time, their coin was 100% silver. And they didn't have enough money to keep fighting these wars and build the empire. So they said, well, let's make the coins 90% silver. That gives us 10% more money. Then let's make them 80% silver. Now we have 20% more money. And on and on and on. Over 200 years, they devalued their currency 90% to where their currency was only 10% silver. They did that over 200 years. The US has basically done the same thing. They got off the gold standard, which was the silver in the coin. They got off the gold standard. And in 40 years, the US dollar has been devalued over 90% in 40 years. And so you look at Zimbabwe, oh my gosh, that's so horrible. I feel so bad for them. Their money's inflated by 500%. Well, so is our money. 90%. We've lost 90% of our value in 40 years. So you may think it's not happening, but did you notice how in 1950, the average home in the United States was 30 grand, and today it's whatever, 300 grand? It's not because your home is worth more. It's because your dollars purchase less.
Interesting.
Boom. I know that's heavy for you guys this morning, but
wow,
it's important to understand that.
Well, I think a lot of people, I mean, that's a great way to start. And maybe what I'll do, I will pan over to one of our listeners who has graciously shared with us a picture of his $10 trillion Zimbabwean notes, so we can all kind of enjoy this. Looks like from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. He's even got the thing highlight, or he's got it laminated, $10 trillion. So we just need to add a few more zeros to our US dollars, and maybe one day we'll be there on that front. But let's get into, I think a lot of people are here, and I'm definitely here. I want to talk about 2018. I think New Year's has settled down, our resolutions are there. When I go to the gym now, it was packed on the 1st. Now things have kind of thinned out. We're back to normal again. Hard to say on that side. But let's talk about 2018. Let's talk about, what's coming, what's going. And maybe I'll start with an interesting announcement that I saw where, one of the, maybe I'll call him the manifestation of the evil empire, right? Jamie Dimon or Jamie Dimon. I'm not pronouncing his name right, but Jamie Dimon literally just gave an interview where he retracted a statement. So he now regrets calling Bitcoin a fraud, and
Ah,
he now believes in the technology behind it. And for anyone who
really?
doesn't know who Jamie is, he's actually the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, Chase Bank, which is probably, I haven't checked lately, but they're number one, if not number, they're top three in terms of largest banks in the world, right? So, people like Jamie who have, we've got even more extreme people like John McAfee who said, Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million, or, I'll do some unsavory things on national television. But even, the mainstream now is saying, Bitcoin or blockchain or whatever, yeah, I mean, is this the year of, well, I don't know, is it the year of the blockchain? Is it the year of the Bitcoin? Why don't we talk about this? But let's talk about it more in terms of factual information, right? Because there's plenty of people on YouTube that say all sorts of, unverified and unbacked emotional statements.
Um, so talk about the statements.
Well,
Let's talk
no,
about the,
let's just talk about the market. Let's talk about, our outlook on the market. Let's just kind of, let's segue into that discussion. Where is it? Are we at the top of the bubble? Is it, have we hit our
so
height from last year?
yeah. So I mean, if for anybody that's been watching me for any amount of time, or even this morning, I've already talked about it multiple times. Study history, study history, study history. I talk about it over and over. Um, the reason why is because if we don't know history, we're not going to know the future. And so the future doesn't it's not always a carbon copy, but it does repeat itself. And so um, if we want to know the future, we have to study the past, right? So if we want to know what's going to happen with the U.S. government, we can look at previous governments in the past that have done what we've done. You know, it's like if I studied Arnold Schwarzenegger's life when he was 14, decided to start lifting weights and ate this diet and did these things, and so if I did those same things that he did, I'd probably end up in the exact same place, or not the same place, but very close, right? And so we can study history, and so one thing that we know from studying history is how this market is going to develop and what's going to happen. And the fact is, and I dropped this on everybody, and a lot of people weren't super happy to hear this, but the fact is that history tells us, it shows us that in this market, probably 95% of these companies are going to go to zero. A lot of people are going to lose a lot of money really fast. And a lot of people are going to be super bummed out about that. And it's going to be pretty bad. Now, wouldn't you want to avoid that? Because I sure as heck would. So how do we do that? Well, by studying history, we can learn to see how things progress. And then we can stay aware for these signs and we can pay attention. Now, timing things is impossible. Nobody can time things, but we can see signs. So it's kind of like, oh, I got to drive across to this other town. How long is it going to take you? I don't know how long it's going to take me, but when I get to the signs, I'll know that I'm there, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about. And so there's 3 stages to any technology or asset growth. And you can go back through history and you can look at this. And really, I'm just going to give you 2 examples. And so the first example is the auto industry in the early 1900s. And Henry Ford created the first automobile and the first assembly line. And that's a new technology. At first, it was hobby tinker guys were in their garage working on cars. And, this guy had one in his barn and this guy had one in his barn. And they're all talking notes and they're just hobby tinkers. Then Henry Ford decides to start this business. Investment capital comes in, and within a couple of years, you had 150 auto manufacturers. A lot of people probably don't know that. 150 auto manufacturers within a few years. And then everybody jumps in, everyone's investing, everybody loves it, but then the market crashes. And 95% of those car companies went out of business, and only 3 survived: Ford, GM, and Chrysler. So it shot up, it crashed. But as we know, that wasn't the end of the automobile industry. Today, there's hundreds of automobile manufacturers. So it goes up, it comes down, and then it comes back up again. The problem is that when it was at its peak with 150, the first 150 down to 3, everybody panicked. Oh my God, it's never coming back. I lost 90% of my money. I'll just sell now. But it came back. We also know, looking at the internet boom in the 1990s. So in 90, 93, 94, 92 to 94, you had hobby tinkers, guys in their garage trying to get their computer onto this network, trying to send messages somehow, one way or another. and they were the hobbyist tinkers. Then in 1995, we had the very first, maybe the one that really pushed things over the edge. We had the Netscape launch. We had, institutional money start jumping in. When I say institutional money, I'm talking about Wall Street, to make it simple. They came in, and then the industry blew up from 95 till about 98. Institutional money could not come fast enough. IPOs being launched every day. Then the third stage is the public comes in. So you have the hobby tinkers, phase one, institution money, phase two, average public, phase three. When the public comes in, they buy at the very top, and then they lose all their money. So with the internet, they got in about 98, 99. The market just raged on from 99 to 2000. And in 2000, it lost 90% of its value in 1 year. Again, it wasn't the end of the internet. Now, 95% of those internet companies went out of business. But of course, we are still here today. Amazon made it, Google made it. And if you would have held on through the dip, you would have made a lot of money. But psychologically, it's almost impossible to hold through that dip, especially when you don't understand what you're doing. So those are the three stages that any technology and asset growth goes through. And if you understand those signs that lead into that, you can then apply that to the cycle that we're in right now.
So where are we in the cycle? I mean, we're the general public, we're in, the market cap is reaching $1 trillion, it's 800 billion one day, 700 billion the next day. Seems like Wall Street's in here. Are we in this mass market phase, or, where do you feel we're at right now?
I believe we've just entered phase two. So we are in phase two, but at the beginning of phase two. So people say, oh, it's a bubble. Yeah, you're right, it's a bubble. But is the bubble just forming, or is there a bubble about to pop, right? So just because we're in a bubble doesn't mean, again, we don't know the timing. Just because we're in phase two, where are we in phase two, right? So I believe we're starting phase two. We're not at the end of phase two. I believe that the institutions have not been allowed to come into this market yet. They've been completely kept out because of the way that laws work. And so those laws are changing aggressively as we speak. And I believe this year is going to be phase two is coming to fruition. As far as phase three, there's consumers in the market, but not mass scale. So phase three will come after phase two. Possibly phase 2 and 3 might even come together. So again, we don't know timing, but we know signs, and we'll be paying attention to that.
So a question then. So I just, speaking of articles, I was reading something this morning, and let's talk more about this. It looks like, I don't know if can you see my screen right now?
Yeah.
So the headline is a new insane ETF proposal for Bitcoin generates worry on Wall Street. So when we're talking about, phase 2 versus phase 3 and all that, and, I'll dive into this a little more. Basically, there's a company, and there's many of these companies out there, but they're actually going to launch a bunch of ETFs, and these are, I guess, leveraged ETFs to, capture the cryptocurrency market and to let, I guess, Wall Street or these traditional institutional people buy in, because they can't just go buy Bitcoins, on their own. So maybe why don't we take a second and talk about this, and, let's explain, why can't my mutual fund or pension fund, why can't they just go on Coinbase like me and go buy some Ethereum and Litecoin and call it a day? Like, why do they need something like an ETF or a derivative fund or a futures fund or everything like that, and what's holding them, why haven't they gotten in yet? Because it seems like everyone's getting in, or anyone smart, I'd like to think, has gotten into Bitcoin or gotten into blockchain already, right?
No. No. I mean, it seems like that because we live, eat, sleep, breathe this. We talk about it all day long. It seems like that, but the fact is no, it's not true. You go to the most crowded mall in your town, you walk up to 100 people and ask them if they've heard of Monero or KuCoin or even Ethereum, and they would look at you like, huh? Like, what the heck are you talking about? No, it's not true. I mean, 1% of people maybe are into this. I mean, think about it. It's so limited. I mean, Bitcoin has 21 million coins, period. There's only 16 million in circulation, and really there's less because a lot have been lost. Maybe there's about 10 or 11 in circulation. A lot of people are holding, they'll never sell. So maybe there's 11 million Bitcoin in existence right now that are available. Just in the United States alone, there's 11 million millionaires. Just in the United States. There's not even enough Bitcoin for every millionaire in the US to own one.
Yeah, and the U.S. isn't even the market. I mean, we just saw with Ripple, South Korea is 45% of the market or 55% of the Ripple market.
So I don't know about you, but I own a bunch of Bitcoin. And all the millionaires can't even buy two. I'm sorry, I can't even buy one.
Yeah. And that's
even if there was all 21 million in existence, which there never will be, but even if there were, every millionaire only in the US can only buy two. So it's very rare. People aren't buying this. So it seems like everybody is, but they're not. And the reason why they're not is because it's very difficult. It's very scary. It's very new. Most of them don't have awareness. And then you understand we have like phases of awareness and then adoption. So first they have to become aware. And at this point, they're not even aware. But awareness does not equal adoption. Everybody knows that they should diet and exercise, but nobody does it. Just because you've heard about Bitcoin doesn't mean you've bought it. So most people don't know about it. Like I said, go to your mall and say, do you own cryptocurrency? And 99 people are going to tell you, huh? What the heck is a cryptocurrency? I mean, it's just the way it is. So it's not as big as we think it is, and because it's not easy, and because it's not mainstream. You have to look at human psychology to understand how people work, and they're not going to buy right now because it's scary. The news is telling them it's bad. The government regulators are telling them it's risky, and they just haven't they just haven't heard about it. So, but the people that have heard about it, they're not convinced. Not until everybody has gotten in and the bubble has reached all-time hysteria mania will they then decide to jump in. So part of that, of getting them in, is to get the institutional money in first so they can see that mainstream Wall Street is getting in. That gives them a level of comfort. Then it will shoot the prices up, and then they want to get part of the mania. Now, the reason why Wall Street hasn't gotten in yet is exactly like you said. They're not allowed to. So the way the laws in the U.S. work, they're sometimes backwards, it seems like, or whatever. But like, for example, a liquor store or a grocery store cannot buy wine directly from the manufacturer of the wine, from the vineyard, or from the liquor company or the beer company. A grocery store has to buy all their alcohol through a middleman. That's just how the law works. I don't know why it seems stupid, but that's just how it works. Well, Wall Street is kind of the same. These institutional funds aren't allowed to own the assets they invest in, like the gold or the stock or the cryptocurrency. And so they have to use a middleman to hold that for them. And they have those for gold and stocks, but they don't have them for crypto yet. So they've been unable to do that. But they're coming. Those are being developed right now. The other thing is that legally they're not able to, because stocks are what we call securities, and they're regulated in a way that they can invest into securities. Well, cryptocurrencies are not securities. So they're not able to do it. But the SEC is trying to change that. They're going to make them securities. Then they'll be able to invest into them. We'll see the custodian accounts pop up. Then they'll be able to buy them. And those are the things that are going to make it easier. One of the big shoes that dropped recently was the CBOE and the CME launched the futures. And you brought up quickly the derivatives market. And another reason why these institutional investors could not invest into this market is because they can only get in if they're allowed to hedge their bet. And the only way they can hedge their bet is through the futures market. And without a futures market, there's no way to hedge. So by adding the CBOE and the CME last month in December, now they can hedge. Okay, now that starts to open up the next step. So by the CBOE and the CME allowing futures trading, now there's a hedge. And because those regulation companies or entities or divisions, whatever they are, has opened up the hedging and kind of approved it, that now opens up the door for the SEC to make them securities. See, it's step by step by step. So now the SEC can make them securities because now the CBOE and CME futures have allowed it. And then once they're securities, then we can see the ETFs pop up. So it's like stair stepping. All these things have to happen. Once the ETFs come up, then that's the easy button. That's when everybody with a E-Trade, Fidelity account, whatever, can just click a button, and now they can own a basket of cryptocurrencies.
That seems like so much work. I mean, why do these companies have to go through all that overhead? I mean, I'm not saying it's easy to buy something on Coinbase and to go, I mean, to go buy a Bitcoin on Coinbase, but it seems like we've added, 6 steps or 4 steps of governmental regulatory frameworks and all that just so I can go buy a Bitcoin. I mean, oh my gosh.
That's what that hey, think about this. In Washington, we have hundreds of people working there with their sole job of making laws and regulations. That's their sole job.
Uh,
If they're not making laws and regulations, they're not doing a good job. I mean, think about that. That's their job. They're legislators, right? Isn't that what they're called? So, so that's their job. So, like I said, even with the grocery store, just to give you an example, why can't the grocery store just buy it directly from the winery? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's some old law from the Prohibition, and it's just there. No, laws never get repealed. They pass a new law to counteract the old law, and so anyway, it's just the way it is. I don't like it, but that's it.
no, definitely. So let's kind of play the top 10 list game or the top 5 list game. I'm going to pull up random predictions on the internet and see what you think about these. And I'm sure you're going to have some fun.
Topics or coins?
Topics. Trends.
Okay.
We're not talking coins.
Okay.
So first, here are some predictions for digital currencies. First, institutions will get into cryptocurrencies. What do you think of that for 2000?
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about it a bunch of times. It's the hot buzzword, just like we saw with the internet boom. Anything with a .com after the name got a bunch of money. And now today we're already seeing it with anything with the word blockchain in it is getting a bunch of money. You've brought up a bunch of examples of that. The latest one is no surprise to me, but Mr. Zuckerberg from Facebook has said, oh, now Facebook is going to get into blockchain and we're going to have our own token. And of course they are. Why wouldn't they? They can create their own Facebook token. It's a native token to the Facebook platform. They can make it a utility token because now I'll buy it and I can use it for whatever types of commerce on the Facebook platform. They can make me buy my advertising with their Facebook token. Why wouldn't they? Now, anybody that understands our investing philosophy knows that we don't like that. We want something that's going to solve a massive problem and use a blockchain in a unique way. But that doesn't mean they're not going to make a crazy amount of money. I bet they'll add $10 billion to their market cap just by getting a blockchain thing going.
Well, I mean, I look at that as kind of McDonald's adding coffee, right? So, Starbucks was taking market share and everything like that. And then McDonald's just said, heck, we'll just add coffee. And instantly, because everyone goes to McDonald's, they just bought coffee. So, I mean, a Facebook blockchain, I mean, I'd probably invest in that just because they have so much reach and whatever. I mean, people will just buy it because we know Facebook and we like blockchain.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Facebook is the biggest example, but I think every company is going to follow suit.
Okay, now this is an interesting one. This pundit claims that there will be more regulation, which will cause the price of Bitcoin to drop. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm literally just pulling up random thoughts. And let's kind of talk about this on that front. So what do you think? There will be more regulation, and as a result of the regulation, will Bitcoin's price drop? What do you think of that one?
I think that it could, and we've seen massive amounts of regulation come down over Bitcoin already. We've seen countries go from legalizing it to regulating it to legalizing it. I think it's hurt it before, but then it usually rebounds back higher. I don't think so. I would say so. To answer that, no. I think yes, we're going to see massive regulation this year. That's one of the biggest things that I'm predicting for 2018 is massive regulation. I believe there's 2 sectors of the cryptocurrency space. So for those of you guys who don't know, it's not all money. There's decentralized storage, there's social media, there's private security, internet security, there's all these different sectors. So I believe the two biggest sectors in the space will be privacy coins and decentralized exchanges because of this increased regulation that we're expecting. I don't think it's going to affect it too bad this year as far as price goes.
Interesting. Let's see. Will Bitcoin here's an interesting one. Will Bitcoin as a percentage of the general crypto, will it drop or will it increase? What do you think of that?
I think it's going to drop and increase. And the reason why I say that is because, we understand these markets are volatile. I think Bitcoin likes to retain close to a 50%, 45% average or, percentage. And so when it gets over like it did, it got up to about 60%, it's headed for a correction. And when it gets down to 35% like it did, it's headed to go back up. So nothing stays static. So it's constantly trying to find that that average price. And so when it gets up to 60%, we know it's going to correct. And the higher it gets above the mean, the further down it corrects. So it went to 30. And when it goes to 30, it's going to snap back again. So it's going to go up and it's going to go down. And I think it's going to find that natural equilibrium in the 40 to 50% range.
Interesting. So now let's talk about, what do we think for market cap? Do we think market cap, is it, maybe $1 trillion and then we're kind of done? Can we go to multi-trillions? People are talking, even bigger numbers, or some people are saying, I saw something saying Bitcoin's going to be $5,000, by mid-year type of a thing.
So, in December, I said that the market would hit trillions this year, and that was when it was, 400 billion. So the trillion was a pretty big number. It's kind of a little bit of a bold claim. Today we're at, 750 billion. So it's not that far off to hit the trillion mark at this point. I believe it's going to be multiple trillions. And as a matter of fact, I have 3 reasons why I believe there's about $30 trillion ready to come into this market.
Wait, hold on. You said 30 trillion.
30, that's correct.
And today we're at 750 billion.
Right.
So what you're saying is hypothetically there is up to 30 times more money that could get into this market.
Yes.
Okay.
That will. I believe that will.
Wow. Okay. So there's could and will. That's a pretty bold prediction, I think.
And again, I said timing is a fool's errand. I'm not trying to time anything, but we will see that money come into the market because we understand how these things work. I mean, think about this: the best asset in the world last year, other than cryptos, the best asset in the world did 35%. Bitcoin did 1,300%. So if you're an investor, where would you want to go? I learned a long time ago when I became a professional investor that money goes where it's treated best. Always remember that. Money goes where it's treated best. So ask you a question. Would you rather make 30% or 1,300%? The answer is clear, obviously. So if I'm an investor, I'm going to want to get into cryptocurrencies. Now today, just in stocks and bonds and cash and gold, there's over $200 trillion. Is it unreasonable to think that just 10% of that money comes over? Just 10%. I have $1 million in stocks, or I have $100,000 in the stocks and gold. Why wouldn't I put 10,000 of that into cryptos? I mean, I think we'll see 50% of that, but I mean, I'm just saying 10%. So 10% of that is $20 trillion right off the bat.
Well, wow. Well, if we're talking about that, I mean, that means just like if I was just trading the index, which I can't yet because that needs the ETF, but trading the index would give me a 3,000% return for the year if $30 trillion came into the market. I mean, that's insane.
And we had a 3,000% return in 2017.
Wow.
So I believe so we have $30 trillion. There's 3 things. One, we have the emerging markets. You talked about, if those emerging countries might skip banks and go, well, you talked about skipping phones, skipping technology cycles. I believe that it can skip a bank. So when we talk about emerging markets and when we talk about Bitcoin, so when we talk about any cryptocurrency, solving a massive problem with unlimited demand. All right. And so, there's decentralized storage. Well, that's a massive problem and it's unlimited demand. But Bitcoin is money. It's the biggest problem, the biggest demand there is, because not only can it handle all the people in the United States, but all the people of all the countries. And for those of you who don't know, there's over 2 billion adults in the world with no access to banks. 2 billion people with no access to banks. So not only do they solve all the problems of people with banks, there's an extra 2 billion people. And so those people in what we call emerging markets, area, developing nations, developing worlds, they didn't get the infrastructure that we did, throughout the 1900s. So they don't have phone lines, but they have mobile phones. Facebook's been involved for years of putting actually like blimps in the air to put internet down to these people, and they all have phones and they're all hooked to the internet, and they can get on Google and they can get on Facebook, and now they can download a wallet and they can have Bitcoin. So they're skipping these cycles of connected phones, and they're going to skip banks, and they're going to go straight to Bitcoin. So, anyway, just from the emerging markets alone, and also Zimbabwe and Venezuela, like we talked about, just in the emerging markets alone, that's $12 trillion. $12 trillion ready to come into the market. Just that.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I saw a story, and I guess that makes sense, right? I don't know if it was Russia or Iran or maybe North Korea, but some of those countries were actually looking at blockchain in terms of moving assets into that to actually kind of circumvent sanctions.
Yeah, they are. So that's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
That actually might tie into what you're saying with, your interest in privacy coins. Well, Bitcoin isn't as private as we all think it is, right? I mean, there's actually companies that can trace your ledger and do all that. But what we're talking about here is, if governments are going to do this to skirt money around or move natural resources around, I mean, that's big. I mean, wow, 12 trillion. Huh. Okay, so go ahead.
So that's that. So 12 trillion there. Then we have, as we talked about, the institutional investors, right? The hedge funds and Wall Street. And so, right, we're going to see the regulations change. We're going to see the securities come in. We're going to see the custodian accounts, all that. And again, studying history shows us how this is going to work. So we saw it in the 80s when they did it with junk bonds. We saw it in the 90s they did it with internet stocks. We saw it in the 2000s when they did it with these mortgage-backed securities. And they're going to do the exact same thing with the cryptocurrencies. So we've seen it over and over and over, so we know how it's going to work. But just the global stock markets are $70 trillion. So, 5 or 10% of that is $10 trillion right there. So I'll call that another 10 trillion. So 12 trillion from the emerging markets, another 10 trillion there. And then we have the public, which we talked about, the ETFs coming in. I think, again, if 10% of that money comes over, it's another 10 trillion. So that's $32 trillion right there.
Wow.
And that's only at 10%. Now, a lot of you guys that are watching this, I know, put a lot more than 10% of your assets into cryptocurrencies. And I'm not recommending that by any means, but the fact is you've done a lot more than 10%. I'm only talking about 10%. Think about this. People, why, I'll ask a rhetorical question. I don't know if you guys know, but why do people buy gold? So gold has been used for thousands and thousands of years as a store of value. I hold gold to protect myself from inflation. I hold gold to protect it from bank confiscation. I hold gold for all of those reasons. That's why people own it. Okay? Now, why would people buy Bitcoin? The exact same reasons.
Well, but it's better than gold because gold, I can't move it, while Bitcoin, all I need is my key and I can get to it. So if I really need to run, it's funny. I've got some friends that are Indian, and in those worlds, like in their cultures, they all have exit plans in play. Like there's actually organizations in the Indian communities that, you spend, $500 a month or whatever, and they have your exit plan to get you out of the US and get you spirited on a boat or a plane or whatever to India, like within 48 hours. And one of the challenges they have is, because a lot of Indians I know, and again, I'm not Indians, I don't know the specifics, but I know a lot of them like to hold gold and stuff like that. There's a physical transport issue, right? If you're trying to move your jewels or move your gold, you need like a case, or you need a box, or you need something on that front. And if Bitcoin actually can hold value, or maybe it's a privacy coin like, Monero or Dash that, someone can't confiscate. The last thing, I mean, you definitely want to escape with your life, but after you escape with your life, you want to make sure you have your stuff with you too, because you don't want to be penniless in a new country, right? Being a refugee kind of sucks, in that regard, right? So maybe, no, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, store of value is definitely a good thing for a lot of people, and especially anyone you're right, in an emerging market that's had any bit of problems, or even, markets that weren't that emerging, right? At one point, Syria was one of the strongest economies in the Middle East, and now it's, not there anymore.
But it's not just those emerging markets. I own gold. I keep gold in my safe. Lots of people in the United States do as well. My point is that Bitcoin is better than gold, but people buy it for about the same reason. And you're right. So one of the main characteristics of a good money is that it's divisible and it's portable, and gold is not. So anyway, my point that I'm trying to make though is that a lot of people buy Bitcoin for the same reason they buy gold. Well, the gold market is $8 trillion.
Hmm.
Would it be unreasonable to think that if I'm buying gold and Bitcoin for the exact same reasons, maybe 10% or 20% of my gold holdings I move over into Bitcoin? That's another $8 trillion.
Wow.
I mean, these numbers are massive. Think about, and then you'd mentioned earlier the derivatives market. So the derivatives market is like, so that's the CBOE and the CME doing futures trading on Bitcoin. Those are called derivatives. The derivatives market is 638 trillion. 638 trillion. I mean, these numbers are just crazy. They're just crazy. And that's one reason why Bitcoin is taking off, because there is no such thing as 638 trillion. It's just made up numbers. There's not that much money in the world. Whereas Bitcoin can never be inflated past 21 million.
Wow. Well, we've been on for almost an hour now, so we kind of got to wrap up. But depending on whether you believe what Mark says, if you believe half of what Mark says, or if you think Mark's being conservative and you look at this global market, right now the market cap today is at, what is it, 700 billion right now? Or I know it dropped a little, 750 billion or
750-ish or somewhere. I'm not looking at it the second, but somewhere in that
let's
in
say
that
we're at
ballpark.
750 million or billion. And if $30 trillion comes in, that means if I have $1,000 in the market times 30, it could be worth 30 grand. That's pretty good. And if half of that comes in, my $1,000 might be worth 15 grand. And geez, if more of that comes in, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna have a lot of fun. I guess we all will on that front.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite something. So we've got bold predictions for the year. Wrapping things up, Mark, do you have any maybe final thoughts or anything to say on that front?
The thing that I would just say is, I've repeated myself like a broken record today. Study history. Understand how these technology adoption cycles work. Understand how markets move. Understand how governments react, so that you can understand your future. All right. The U.S. has not been the world superpower forever. I mean, really, they've only ran the money supply for the last, 60, 70 years. And things change, and you need to be prepared for that. So study history, or just keep watching us, and we'll keep you filled in. But it's going to be good. It's going to be volatile. Nothing goes up in a straight line. I believe it's super bullish for this year. I believe at the end of the year, we're going to be sitting back looking at this and going, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But we're going to have lots of drops along the way. I believe, again, my prediction is that I believe this year is going to go down in history, breaking every record. And we'll never have seen a market go up like we're about to see the cryptocurrency market go up. The level of mania and hysteria that's going to happen this year will be unprecedented.
Wow. Well, that's exciting. So for everyone tuning in, it looks like we still have over 150 people watching this. Thank you very much for listening to, two random people rant about cryptocurrency and the markets. If you're going to be around, we actually also have some other exciting things planned for this week. Tune in later tonight. I think it's going to be around 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. We're going to, last week we did a Shark Tank style review of a altcoin called WeTrust. They were a trusted lending platform for Raskas and Susus and everything. And this week we're actually going to be reviewing and meeting with the CEO and founder of a blockchain startup that's kind of trying to do an Amazon for blockchain. So if you want, we're going to look at some things Shark Tank style. If you want to tune in and just kind of, watch how we look at things. I don't know if we look at things right or wrong, but, watch how we think, watch how we might, grill a new founder. That'll be tonight at 7 or 8 p.m. If you aren't in the group, I know this video has been shared outside. In the description, I think it's either below or above. I'm not quite sure how the Facebook side works. Check out, we've got a great crypto investing group. It's about 50,000 strong and growing. So tune in for, more great stuff. So Mark, hey, thanks a lot for your time. Always a pleasure.
One last thing I wanted just to add real quickly, not really in with what we've been talking about, but just in case you guys missed it yesterday, I put up a list of a bunch of new exchanges. Lots of people have been having problems getting on Bittrex, and then Binance shut down, and then, all these exchanges are shutting down. There's a bunch of exchanges out there. I put a list up before, but go back and look at that. I posted up yesterday a number of exchanges. I think that you should open up as many exchange accounts as possible. It takes a couple of minutes to do it. It doesn't cost any money. Why not? Personally, I have like several Bittrex accounts open. I have several Binance accounts open, and I do different things in those different accounts, and everyone's all bummed out they can't get into those accounts, but I've got a bunch set up and open. So all you need is an email address. I would recommend just doing that in advance. There's a new list. Don't be stuck because you can't get on Bittrex.
Good idea. Yeah, no, that's the worst thing, right? If you got that coin, that hot coin you want to buy, and you haven't prepared for when the coin hits, and you now have to wait weeks for it to get verified, and while you're watching yourself get accepted on the account, the coin goes from, a penny to $10, right?
Yep.
I've seen a lot of those. So no, great advice, Mark. Again, thanks a lot for your time and everything, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys.
Alrighty. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.